Hey everybody, Kelley Engineer here, and welcome to episode 12 of Stage Learning. In between episodes, I didn't really do much of anything. I just did some prep work for this episode. I did a very quick mining run because I was running low on iron, and yeah, that's really about it. I didn't use the Project Red piping to make my furnace array better because I made the decision I'm not going to use the Project Red piping at all. It is just it's far too complicated for what I need it for, and I'm sure it's complicated because you can do some amazing things with it, but I don't have the desire to learn what that is. So we're going to be sticking with conveyor belts in this episode, and that's one of the things that I was doing the prep work for. Um, yeah, so be that as it may, let's get to it. I brought it up in the last episode, but in order to make the conveyor belts, you typically, I don't want to call it the vanilla recipe, but the original recipe for the conveyor belts involves having leather, a lot of leather. But because I have Tech Reborn in here, I can bypass that by using the rubber. So I've had rubber going for quite a bit in my extractor over here, and I have more than enough to make more than enough conveyor belts. And these are the conveyor belts that we're typically going to be using in this episode. I'm not going to be using the Magneticraft conveyor belts because in my tests, they didn't really mesh well with, I mean, they look the part, but they didn't mesh well functionally with what I wanted to do. So yeah, here's the rubber, and now we have plenty of conveyor belts. So I'm going to keep this recipe here because I'm sure I'm going to need more. We're going to be making a lot of dropping conveyor belts and the vertical conveyor belts, and a little bit of the extracting conveyor belts, which are the most complicated recipe. The only reason they're complicated is because it requires the iron mechanical components and these strip curtains. So the strip curtains require tough fabric and aluminum or steel or iron rods, and I was making tough fabric in between episodes, and I don't have as many as I would like, but it's enough to get us started. So here's our tough fabric, and we can make all of the different flavors of conveyor belts. Before we make all of the conveyors, though, I should probably make my very first crusher. So that is what we're doing now, and I'm going to have pretty much almost a duplicate of what's going on over here. I'm going to have two different crushers, and then I'm going to have two different arrays that will turn the crushed outputs into the ingots. So it's going to require a little bit of reversal in order to do that, but I'm perfectly fine with that. I need this and this. Oh, we're going to need this for this layer as well. So I have a tab open right now because the projectors are apparently added via a separate mod, via Immersive Engineering sister mod. So I guess I've always used Immersive Engineering with that mod installed because I could swear that the projector was just a base part of Immersive Engineering, but I was wrong, and luckily the pack author corrected me on that. So here we go. We are just about done with the crusher, and we just have to right click. I forget which block it is. Get out of here. Oh, I need the engineer's hammer. Duh. Okay. Sorry, that was a brain fart on my part. Here we go. The engineer's hammer. And I still need to find the correct spot to place it. Am I just an idiot? I'm probably an idiot. Alright, so I wasn't an idiot. The internet was just wrong. So the way that I set this up, well, according to the diagram that's on the internet, is I had this light machinery block, or light engineering block, over on this side. So I just swapped the placing of the scaffolding and the light engineering block, and it also said you had to tap the light engineering block to assemble it. Well, that's not the case. What I needed to do is right-click the fencing. Any of the fencing would do after I swapped those places. So yeah, now I have one of the crushers assembled, and it's not powered right now, so I don't have to worry about it crushing me, but it can absolutely crush me once it's supplied with power right here. So I'm going to get some power. I'm going to apply a redstone signal to it, and we are going to hook some conveyor belts into it. So I have power hooked up to the crushers right now, and like I showed in the last clip, it gets connected right here, and they are full of power. So I have some iron here. We're going to drop that iron in. Whoops, that is... Oh, dropping is not the same button anymore. I retooled it to hover. So, alright, let me redo a couple things right now. Alright, there we go. My coin of fortune is off, and let's drop this iron in here. So you see that the crusher started working immediately, and I have outputs coming to these conveyor belts. So I am on the fence about these conveyor belts. I love their functionality. I hate how they look, because if I try to place a conveyor belt right here, and luckily they have the arrows, you see that it didn't connect at all to the conveyor belt, and there is very little that I can do about it. So I can, as you just saw, right-click this conveyor belt, and it shifted its axis, so now whenever it comes along this side, it will start moving here, but now I can't have anything that moves this way. But luckily there is a conveyor belt to get around that, the splitter, but even then, using the splitter is odd, to say the least. Also, whenever there is nothing along the line, it just stays open like this. Another thing I don't like. So they don't look good, but their functionality is unparalleled. So yeah, we're gonna set up something like this so that we can auto feed into the conveyor belt and then output into our next machine. So in order to set up the inputs for these machines, I am going to have to get a little complicated with the conveyor belts because I want to make sure that they don't interfere with each other. In order to do that, I have splitting conveyor belts, the standard of course, dropping and vertical conveyor belts. The vertical conveyor belts are probably my favorite because they eliminate the need for me to have to do this. So if I have a conveyor belt going in a line, but I want it to go up a slope, I can place a block and then another conveyor belt on top of here. And like I showed before, you can you can right-click the conveyor belts to adjust their orientation. However, if you shift right-click and there is a possibility of it going up, it will go up. So you can have the conveyor belts go up, and I guess putting that iron block there was kind of useless because I can place this. You see that there's no block telling it to go up, and then shift right-clicking will just have the up orientation. So I can eliminate the need for that with vertical conveyor belts. Vertical conveyor belts, unfortunately, are a little hard to place because I need, if I had creative flight, it'd be ridiculously easy, but yeah, you see, I was just trying to place that and it wasn't going too well. There we go. However, what I can do is I can cover these conveyor belts and they become so much easier to place. Here we go. I'm going to place vertical conveyor belt right here. A covered vertical conveyor belt. And that is the wrong direction. There we go. Alright, so now it is going in the correct direction. I can just shift right click on top of it. And it's much easier to place. So here we go. I have my vertical conveyor belts and I'm ready to move them across so that my dropping conveyor belt can drop them into the crusher. I'm also going to be utilizing these splitters in order to split whatever I want going in, so it will just evenly distribute between my two crushers. Because so far this episode, the internet has been wrong, it said that there can be a buffer of 2 billion items inside the crusher, and it will just process them as it gets to it. I do not know whether or not that is true. So I don't want to take that chance, and I'm going to put in a little bit of overflow protection as well. So I have completed Mark 1 of the conveyor belt system, and it is absolutely a success. I ran that 24 iron through it, and there were no hiccups, there were no problems with it. The only problem I do have with it is aesthetically, it has some bumps. So this is what I was talking about before. The conveyor belt trying to move into a direction leaves this side open, even though it knows that it's supposed to be traveling in this direction. It doesn't close up this end, and it's kind of ugly to look at. Same thing with the vertical covered conveyor belts. So you see I left a blank here because down at the bottom, the conveyor belt recognizes that it needed an opening, and it created an opening right here. It unfortunately does not create an outlet for itself. If I tried to place another covered conveyor belt right there, yeah, no opening would be created for this covered conveyor belt to take the items. So yeah, it's kind of ugly to look at in that regard, but other than that, it works perfectly. I have an upper level where the extracting conveyor belt will output, and it will input everything in through here. The reason why it's not covered on top is because there is no covered variant of the splitting conveyor belt, and it just wouldn't have looked right to have everything else covered and this thing not covered. I also had to extend this out by 1 block because it was getting a little glitchy by only having it exit here and then immediately change directions to go onto the conveyor belt. So yeah, I extended it out by 1, and that seems to have cleared it up. Running the iron through through a couple test runs before dropping into the crusher, this splitting setup had 11 on this side and 13 on that side very consistently, so it's an even distribution, but I could only attain that by making the extracting conveyor belt at 20 ticks. If it was the 4, 8, or 16, then stuff was coming out too quickly, and it was getting all bunched up, and I ended up at one of the runs having, I think 18 over here, so it wasn't a very even distribution. But having it at 20 ticks was perfect. It's just a little slow going, exiting out. So let's see this in action by throwing in this lapis. There we go. You see that it is being evenly distributed, and it sometimes doesn't look like it is, but if you see it going this way, sometimes it just graphically glitches out, but it will still appear over on this side. So, oh, and you see that I just picked up, yeah, my magnet just picked up some of that lapis, so that's unfortunate. Let's throw it back. Here we go. And that is one of the things that happens when you don't have covered conveyor belts. Apparently when it's on the splitting, it doesn't count itself as an entity anymore. So I'm going to have to be careful around this area if my magnet is activated. But you see all of the lapis is coming out here, because down here I have a linked conveyor taking the output from here and here, and it just combines over to this output. So yeah, Mark 1 is an unmitigated success. I've added onto the system with some electric furnaces, and it is ugly. Yeah, it is incredibly ugly. I also put in a little bit of overflow protection because I realized that this is not the best way to be doing it. I just wanted to see it in action. So I have my electric furnaces being powered from the back here, and I may move it up 1. Yeah, I'm going to move it up 1 just because I don't like this clipping of the wire. I know it's just for visual purposes, but yeah, I don't like it, so I may move it up 1. But I have yet to do a full complete test of this. So what I have here are a bunch of pulverized iron, and I am going to throw them all onto the conveyor belt. Here we go, and there we go. I just want to see, since there are 6 stacks here, all right, how much went through? Okay, the full stack went through, so that's all well and good. And then the overflow protection is just going to keep it running all around. And if I turn on my magnet, I'm fairly certain I'll try to... Yeah, you can see that me being in the vicinity is already pulling the pulverized dust. So yeah, I will not be able to activate my magnet in this area. But I am making a whole bunch of iron now. I'm very happy with that. But these are very slow electric furnaces. So the next thing that we're going to be working on are overclocker upgrades. Before I begin with that, though, I do want to bring up the fact that because I have this pulverized iron always on a conveyor belt, the pulverized iron will not despawn. It is constantly in motion, and thus it refreshes itself in the world. And an item has to be sitting still for 5 minutes before it'll despawn. So luckily, thanks to this conveyor belt system, I don't have to worry about that, and all of the iron will go into the furnaces eventually. Here we go. Alright, so the overclocker upgrade is going to let me increase the speed of my Tech Reborn machines, and they're going to require the 10K coolant cells. I got these as a quest reward, so that's fine, but I am going to need a lot more of them. I want to make a lot of overclocker upgrades because I'm going to have a lot of Tech Reborn machines working here in a very small area. So yeah, overclocker upgrades, let's set ourselves up. I have a water generator, and placing it here is probably not the best idea. Let's place it over by my crafting stations. So, water generator, a bucket, and all we have to do is place the bucket in here. And if you put a glass pane here, it'll make an empty cell, while putting the water in there instead will make me two 10K coolant cells. You know what? This is very slow going, so I'm going to try something different. We're going to make the Project Red auto crafting bench. There is a Tech Reborn variant, but it requires me to make advanced electronic circuits, and I am not quite there yet. I want to automate the creation of electronic circuits before I do that. So yeah, we're going to make this auto crafting bench from Project Red expansion. And everything is pretty simple, except for the electrotine alloy. That's simple enough. Iron and electrotine, I have plenty of that. So yeah, let's get this crafted up. Here we are, some electrotine alloy, and we can add this to the pile. There we go, an auto crafting bench. Now, if my experience with the pipes is any indication, I have no experience with Project Red. It's in a lot of packs, but I never use it. So, alright, it does require power. Oh no, can I not use... Oh boy, I don't know whether or not it can accept water. It doesn't look like it can accept water. Dang it. So the Project Red table does not take water. So I am crafting something that I know definitely takes water. And that is, oh man, and of course I'm having trouble finding where I'm supposed to hit again. Are you kidding me right now? There it goes. Alright, so this is the assembler from Immersive Engineering. The assembler takes water. So here is the power on and off, there is the output, and here is the input. So if I want water to go inside of it, simple enough. All I have to do is just place a water source next to it. What I want to craft, I'm going to put a water bucket right here, and then the tin ingots I want right here. It recognizes that it can make the 10K coolant cell, so all I have to do is inside the input, put these items, put in the water bucket, and then put the water source block next to it. And, oh, I'm going to need some pipes to pipe it into where the water input goes. I'm not really a big fan of how that works, but it's fine. I have plenty of the piping, so it's not really a problem. I can find the chest that the pipes are in. There they are. All right. So, iron pipes, let's go over here. What the heck? It should absolutely... Oh, because here's the input. There we go. You see the water is filling in. I don't need this anymore. I could swear that this was the fluid input. But it's perfectly fine. It is putting in the water. And all I need to do is supply it with some power. And I have plenty of power stuff here right now. Alright, there it goes. It's filling up with power. And so far, it is not taking anything that I want it to. Why is it not? I'm not sure why it's not taking what I need it to. Is it off by default and I need to attach a lever to it? So I tried it with two different recipes, and when I say tried it, I mean I just removed the bucket and then removed the other two, and it works just fine. I do not know why it is not going for this water bucket. I assumed it was because the 10K coolant cell can't exist in the world, but that's not the case either, because I can drop it just fine. So yeah, I am not exactly sure what is going on or why this isn't crafting it as it should. Alright, so 28 or 10, it recognizes it has water. I'm gonna throw in an empty bucket and see whether or not that works. I think I have a spare bucket in here. Yes, I do. Alright, so I'm going to throw in a spare bucket, so I have one water bucket and one empty bucket, and see whether or not that works. Nope, that is not working. What the heck? It doesn't really matter. I'm going to troubleshoot it later. For now, we can make overclocker upgrades. I have 5 of them, and I'll make more in between episodes because my bottleneck for them is the insulated copper cable, which is needed in order to make the electronic circuits and the overclocker upgrades themselves. So I need quite a bit of copper in order to do that, as well as throwing in all of my rubber trees through the extractor. So for now, we can at least throw the overclocker upgrade in here. It can accept 4 of them. You see that I now accept 20,000 forge energy instead of the 4,000 by default. And you know what? Let's throw in... I don't really have anything that can be thrown in here. Oh, I have some iron. So if I want to make some refined iron, throw that in here. Oh, wow. Okay, that is very, very quick. 4 overclock upgrades is more than enough. I can probably get by with just having 2 of them. You know what? Yeah, that is a decent speed. So I'm probably going to put 2 in each of these machines. And, oh man, that is fantastic. Yeah, so all in all, I'd say this was a pretty successful episode. I have a couple things I need to troubleshoot in between, like this assembler. If you have any idea what could be causing it, put it in the comments. I had a similar setup in Ragnamod 5 making concrete, the Immersive Engineering concrete. And yeah, I put water in it, I put the recipe in just fine, and it worked just fine. I may need to boot up that pack to figure out what I was doing there that I'm not doing here. But I am Kelley Engineering. In between episodes, I'm going to be doing a mining run and getting so much copper because it's going to be required for the next episode. The next episode, we're not going to be doing any of the quests. We're going to be getting into something a little bit bigger, a little bit better. Still Tech Reborn and still Immersive Engineering, but it's just not a quest. So, I hope that you did enjoy this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.